Okay. My cat heard that sound effect. Hopefully she'll stay away. Now, Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children. So how is he going to have this nation if he does not have a son? That's the problem. So we now know that he's going to have a son. That's going to come from his own body. Okay. God said that very clearly. He's not going to have a legal heir, an adopted legal heir from someone outside his family. It's a son coming from his own body, his own seed, who will be his heir. And that somehow or another, from that son is going to come a nation that's going to be greater than the stars in the sky. And it's going to inhabit this land. That's going to happen. God has made that covenant. And he has bound himself to that covenant by going through this covenant-making process, by which God essentially declares, if I don't fulfill my terms of the covenant, may I be destroyed and cut in half like these animals have been. So you know that God is going to make good on his end of the covenant. But the problem remains, which Abram pointed out in the previous chapter, that as of now, Abram still has no son. God did say the son was going to come from his own body. So now we got to try to figure out a way to make that happen. Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children. Now God did not say, now he meant this is going to be the case, but he did not explicitly say this so far, that the child has to come from Sarai. He did say it was going to come from Abram. It was going to come from Abram's own body, but he didn't say that it's going to come from Sarai. And she's borne him no children. So, but she had an Egyptian maidservant. Remember how they went back in Egypt, went down to Egypt a few chapters ago? Apparently they got Hagar while they were down there. But she had an Egyptian maidservant named Hagar. So she said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from having children." So we got to blame God. Just a little bit of shade thrown in there on God, just so we know that it's His fault, really, in the end. "Go, sleep with my maidservant. Perhaps I can build a family through her." Now this would have been, Abram agreed to what Sarai said. He agreed. Now this wasn't his idea, but he agreed with it. This would have been a common cultural custom at this point in time. In fact, it's written into the law of Hammurabi, if you've ever heard of that this was supposed to happen. This was one of the rights, I guess you could say, afforded to women at this point in time. Most of these laws of these various nations at this point in time were not overly concerned with defining or specifying the rights of women in culture, but one of the rights they did have was the right to raise a family through basically a surrogate mother, in this case Sarai's Egyptian maidservant Hagar. Hammurabi would have been a predecessor of Abraham. I don't think they would have been contemporaries. I think Hammurabi came along a little bit before Abraham did. If they were contemporaries, I mean, I don't know the exact years. I'll get into the chronology. I'll get into the chronology of all these events a little bit later. It's a little bit premature to get into that just yet. The way I explain it, the way I keep it in mind simply, is that Abraham lived around 2000 BC. 1800, around 2000 BC, 1900, 2000 BC. The Exodus happened in 1446 or so BC. So you add, 430 years before that, and of course that would have been Abram's halfway through Abram's life at that point. So you get to the 1900 or so BC, and he was born around. I don't know the exact years. I purposely do not keep track of some of these figures specifically. I remember the date for the Exodus of 1446 or 1445 BC, give or take a year, and some other things. But for the most part, I purposely do not specifically remember exact dates. But basically 1445 BC, Abraham would have lived 430 years, obviously before that, and of course, and so you get back now to about 1900 BC that Abraham would have lived. That goes back a pretty long ways. I think Hammurabi was also around 2000 BC, give or take a century or two, But Hammurabi would have ruled the part of the world where Abraham came from. So they would have been familiar with his concepts of his law codes. They may not have been living under them anymore. Now they've moved to the land of Canaan. but they would have been familiar with those concepts. So the idea of a woman who is barren, not having children, but having children through another woman, and having children through her, and raising a family through that, like that would have been I mean, we still do this today. I mean, we still have surrogate mothers and things like this today. So this isn't even really all that strange compared even to our modern day practices. Now, you might not have a situation where it's your maidservant living in your own tent or your own, caravan or whatever it is. But we still have the idea of surrogate mothers even to this day. And that's basically what's going on here. And Abram agrees to it. He sees no problem with it. Now, Abram has been told the son will come from his body. But neither Abram nor Sarai considers Sarai herself to be essential here. Neither of them believes at this point in time that Sarai is necessary to this ingredient, to this too. If she will be, God intends for her to be. But neither she nor her husband believes that at this point. So after Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, so he now be 85, I guess? Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian maidservant Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. He slept with Hagar, and she conceived. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Did she want to take her place? Did she want to be the chosen one now? I mean, they all would have known, I'm sure, that Abram had received these promises and covenants from God. Did she want to remove Sarai and take her place as the mistress of the lady of the household? I don't know. Then Sarai said to Abram, "You are responsible for the wrong I am suffering." So Sarai and Hagar had a problem that was apparently pretty severe. It says here she began to despise her mistress, and somehow or another she caused Sarai suffering. And of course, Sarai blames Abram for it. "I put my servant in your arms, and now that she knows she is pregnant, she despises me." Bickering women. That's what's going on here. "May the Lord judge between you and me." "Your servant is in your hands," Abram said. "Do with her whatever you think best." Then Sarai mistreated Hagar. So she's just going to, if Hagar is going to hate her, she's going to mistreat Hagar. That's going to make Hagar love her even now, isn't it? That's going to make things all nice and warm and loving and fuzzy. So Hagar, fled from her. The angel of the Lord found Hagar. I think that's the first time we've heard about the angel of the Lord. What is the angel of the Lord? Found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was a spring that is beside the road to Shur. That is in there indicates it was still there at the time the author wrote the book. I don't know if it's still there today or not, but apparently it was there in Hagar's day and it was still there in the writer's day. And he said, "Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from? And where are you going?" Again, he knows the answers to these questions. But he wants her to answer these questions. Does she know the answers? Does she know where she's going, particularly? I'm assuming she's going back to Egypt, but I don't know. "I'm running away from my mistress Sarai," she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her." The angel added, "I will so increase your descendants that they will be too numerous to count." The angel of the Lord also said to her, so he's keeping an eye on Hagar. He's not going to let Hagar go away and die off in the wilderness, unloved and unappreciated. The angel of the Lord also said to her, "You are now with child, and you will have a son. You shall name him Ishmael," which means God hears, "for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he will live in hostility toward all his brothers," or to the east of, which is the same thing as saying hostility of, because the east is the bad direction. "And he will live in hostility toward all his brothers." She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her, "You are the God who sees me." For she said, "I have now seen the one who sees me." Ishmael means God hears. And I have seen, now she's talking about she has seen, or he has seen her. That is why the well was called Bir Lahai Roy, which means, well, the living one who sees me. It is still there between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and she and Abram gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born, which I'm sure he heard from Hagar he was supposed to do. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. And he's going to be a wild donkey towards all of his brothers. To this day, those people do not get along. The Ishmaelites, the descendants of Ishmael, and the descendants of Isaac, 4,000 years later, to this day, do not get along. They still live in hostility towards each other. They still fight each other constantly. They're still arguing about which of them is the chosen people of God. This has not been settled. It has been settled. It was settled 4,000 years ago. It was always going to be Isaac. But this is a dispute that has been raging now for 4,000 years. Any U.S. politician who comes along and thinks he's going to, or she is going to solve this problem, like with a seminar or something like that, like with a world summit or event or something like that, is absolutely mistaken and deluded. These people have been fighting each other for 4,000 years over which of them is the chosen people of God, destined to bring humanity to the eternal land of promise. Okay? This is not the sort of thing that you just sign a contract for, or make a deal over, sign a few forms, shake hands on, and put past you. Okay?